Hi, and welcome to this episode of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television, and I do appreciate you taking the time to join us for this In Focus. Hopefully you'll find something interesting or informative for you. A little bit later on, we will have another session with the Master Gardeners as they help us get through the early season planting that some of us are doing in our yards, or if maybe you're thinking about starting a garden, getting some great information from Beth Treaster. We'll also revisit a conversation that we had a little bit earlier in the spring, and it's been a tumultuous spring weather-wise, with Matthew Cain and John Duke from Wayne County Emergency Management. But we open up this In Focus by having a conversation with Matt Stegall, who is going to be hosting the 2025 Quality of Place Conference, and we'll talk about that name coming up in just a little bit. But Matt, thanks for taking the time and joining us.
You're welcome.
A lot of people who have been in and around Richmond for years and years already know you, but obviously you know a number of people move in and out of this community. So for those who don't know your background, talk a little bit about your relationship with the Richmond-Wayne County area.
Well, I grew up in Richmond, born here. My family has been in the community for 4 generations. I am part of the Stegall Bear Hydor Funeral Home here in Richmond. Mm-hmm. My grandfather and 2 great uncles started the business in 1924. Started out in a half-double house on East Main Street. My dad was 12 years old when they started the funeral home, and he grew up in it. My cousin Oscar was part of the business. My great uncle Ora was Oscar's father. My great uncle Irvin was a Methodist minister who was part of the business. And then my grandfather Noah Stegall was, of course, part of the business as well. In the 1930s, we brought in the Bearhide family, Frank Bearhide. His son, Ned Bearhide, was also the 2nd generation. My father was 2nd generation. We had another fellow in the firm, Darrell Swisher, and his nephew, Burdett Orr, came into the business after World War II. I've been around it since I was 8 years old. I learned a great deal about being around the business on the value of community and the relationships that we all have with one another as being part of this community as citizens. Mm-hmm. So it's been a very interesting ride for me. Growing up, I developed a strong interest in history. My father was a great encourager, saw my interest there. During junior high school and high school, I spent my weekends at the Wayne County Museum, where I learned about Richmond and Wayne County history and history in general, but also developed a relationship with a lot of older folks who were great mentors for me, leaders in the community who believed in the value and the mission of the Wayne County Museum. I went to school at IU, graduated with a degree in history because that's my interest, but that also gave me a good background for my career in funeral service, because when you get into liberal arts, you're dealing with a lot of different topics, nothing specific. You get more of a worldly view of life. For a while after college, I did work in community development with the Department of Housing and Urban Development in Washington, D.C. Came here to operate the historic preservation program for the city through an organization called Old Richmond Incorporated. Decided that it was time for me to get into the family business, and I've utilized in our business plan the idea of neighborhood reinvestment. Our funeral home is located in the Star National Register Historic District. So the knowledge that I gained from working in community development, I applied that as well in my business plan to maintain our location in that really neat neighborhood. We could have moved out, abandoned the neighborhood. This place is going down. It's time for us to get out. But I saw a better vision, in that we had a fine facility, offered all of the amenities of a modern funeral home, but the convenience of a historic property. So it's been a great time for me.
You have said names and things that even in my time here I have not heard. We've got to have you back and let you talk about a little bit more of that history that you've seen and the changes that you've seen in some of the various neighborhoods, like the Star neighborhood. I imagine you've seen that area change greatly since you've moved your business into it.
It has. It's always been somewhat of a neighborhood in transition. At one time, the Star District was the place to live for the business and industrial leaders of the community. It's interesting, you look at a neighborhood like Star, back in the 19th century, we didn't have cars. Mm-hmm. So everybody either walked or took a carriage or horse or whatever, or public transportation to get to wherever they wanted. So in that neighborhood, you see a lot of different types of housing. Larger homes that the business and the corporate people lived in, but a lot of simpler homes that the working class lived in as well. So this neighborhood was a whole mixture of different economic types because of the notion that you can't drive. Mm-hmm. Later on at the turn of the century, as these generations grew older, and new opportunities came up as far as housing development. One example is the Reefston Road area. Reefston is one of the National Register historic districts. It is Richmond's first car-centric neighborhood. And from there, the whole thing changed because then people were being excluded from neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. In the Reefston, it was specifically for those of the higher echelon. And the working class were more other areas of the community. Where before in the Star District, they were all put together and were one community of different types of people. It's really fascinating stuff.
Before we get into the Quality of Place Conference, you've used the word community a number of times in the short 6 or 7 minutes we've been on. How do you define community?
Community is people. Our number one resource, our number one asset is the people here in Richmond. That is our brain trust. And I'm sorry, but I think it's being overlooked in a lot of ways by our leadership and by the organizations, institutions that make decisions in our community. And I think people feel like they're being left out. And I think you find that in today's politics. Mm-hmm. Today, people will talk to a person's anger or frustration. And we need to get back to the people and get people involved. And you can see it in the community we have today. When I was younger, the Star District was a neighborhood that was in transition. A lot of properties were broken up into apartments. And over the years, those apartments have gone down. There's been no real investment in housing in neighborhoods like Star. Mm-hmm. It's all gone to outer areas, this car-centric world that we live in. Right. Sorry. We need to come back to the city. Us personally, we live a block from the funeral home. We bought a historic house that was empty for 20 years, condemned by the city. We enjoy the urban lifestyle. I can walk to work. I ride a bicycle. One of the few people in Richmond that probably use a bicycle for transportation, other than maybe those in poverty who do not have a car and have no way to get around. They find a bicycle or they walk. Well, you see that in larger cities. You can walk to the grocery. You can walk to stores. Here, you got to drive out to the east side of town, get in your car and go. So community is people, number one asset. You neglect that, you got nothing.
What made you start the Quality of Place Conference?
Well, it's part of my my business plan. In order to get something going, you have to be involved. I just can't open up a funeral home and operate it for that purpose. I mean, I can do that if I moved out of the neighborhood into a safe neighborhood that people might feel obliged to. So we have to get involved. You have to take a stake in your neighborhood, in the community, in the city. So for years, I've been working on that. I mean, I've put together a number of workshops and conferences over the years. One I'm really proud of is called the SURE Conference. It was held in the 1980s, Sustainable Urban Rural Enterprises. It's using sustainability on how we rely on ourselves, what we have. And it's both environmental, but also economically as well. And things like neighborhoods, investing in neighborhoods, that is being sustainable. But yes, the quality of place thing came about because of Richmond Columbian Properties, which is the organization that I'm a member of. I serve as treasurer. We do have a board of directors. It's not my thing. We own the William G. Scott House. And it's kind of a long story. Columbian Properties was a holding company that bought a property for the Richmond Council of the Knights of Columbus. Knights of Columbus are not allowed to own property. They're supposed to work out of the Catholic Church as a men's church organization, a fraternal organization. Okay. They got around that by creating a holding company that would purchase a property, and then the council would then rent from the holding company. So the holding company is made up of Knights of Columbus members. And I'm past Grand Knight of the council. In fact, I was Grand Knight when the council decided to move from the Scott House to Holy Family Church. They've gone full circle. Father McGivney, who founded the Knights of Columbus, wanted men back in the church. And because that's where the center of the Catholic faith is. And so we've come full circle. So I'm also treasurer of Columbian Properties. Columbian Properties, when we took the building on, it was not the most favorable condition. And we took it and decided to hang on to it. We changed our mission and our structure, our organization, to become a 501c3 historic preservation organization. Our mission is twofold. One is to preserve the Scott House, and two is to be an advocate for quality of life. We need to preserve our neighborhoods and enhance the character of the community of the city. That's all we have, is people and our character. Anything else is not going to work.
Tell me about this year's Quality of Place Conference, your speaker lineup, and what the main topic for this year is.
The theme of the Quality of Place Conference this year is the spirituality of place. We think we need to find, Columbian Properties feels we need to find a higher calling in our city for people to perhaps take on more of a daily ministry yoked to Christ. As you find in the book of Matthew, take my yoke upon you. A Quaker theologian, Elton Trueblood, developed this concept of us working together, yoked with Christ, in how we serve every day in our personal lives and in the community, in our businesses. We should find that, that yoke again and look more as our involvement in the community as a ministry. And so we're going to focus more on spirituality of community. The speakers coming in, we usually have three. Bill Taft, who is with the Sagamore Institute in Indianapolis. He was Wayne County's first Main Street director.
Okay.
And he moved on to Indianapolis. He was part of the movement that redeveloped the Fountain Square area of Indianapolis. He has since moved on to the Indianapolis LISC program, which is a national program for community reinvestment, neighborhood development, and then took on a role with the national LISC program, and now serves as part of the Sagamore Institute in Indianapolis, working on these issues as well. So we want him to focus on development of residential neighborhoods. In Richmond, a lot of emphasis is being placed on Main Street. And Main Street, is true. It is the heart of a community. But yet, surrounding that heart is a whole body.
Right.
We need to be more holistic in how we approach things and how we develop, our community. Again, I keep using community. And we've been advocating for that. So we want to build and focus more on what we need to do for residential housing that surrounds our Main Street. They're going to spend over, $100 million on Main Street. But surrounding that large investment is a neighborhood that, quite frankly, we think is a slum because it's been allowed to become that. And that's unconscionable. We really need to step in and take charge. Think more about what we have, investing in our assets and building from that. You can't keep building and building new without sacrificing what you already have. Brady Kress. Brady Kress was the program director for Eastern Regional Office of the Indiana Landmarks. He now is in charge of Dayton history, takes in Carillon Park. You should really go there. That is quite a place. It's almost like the colonial Williamsburg of Dayton, or you think about Conner Prairie. But they also have a program where they also have a program. First, they take Carillon Park, Dayton History Museum. You even have a brewery on their campus. But what they've done in Dayton, there's a lot of little historic house museums. Under Dayton history, you got one umbrella, one budget, one guy running the show. It's more efficient. A real keynote, though, is going to be Jeff Carter, president of Bethany Seminary. Bethany's doing some great stuff in housing around College Avenue.
Yes.
He's going to talk about the real spirituality of how we all can serve a better ministry to our community.
That is coming up on May 1st.
Yes.
Thursday, May 1st. You can go online, Eventbrite. A lot of people have Eventbrite on their phones. It's on Eventbrite. It is a ticketed event. We can't talk about the price, but we can tell you there is a ticketed event there. And it is, we have been running for years. We've been recording and re-airing some of those sessions, but it's great to be in the room and be part of that conversation.
Well, they can go to our website, richmondcolumbianproperties.org, and go to the link that is the quality of place.
We've got about 4 minutes left before I let you go, and I promise we're going to have you back because I want to continue this conversation with you. I want to mention the Richmond Columbian Properties Photography Show, which is opening up a reception Thursday, April 24th, 7 p.m. Talk real quickly about this event.
This is something we started a number of years ago because we want to use the Scott House as a place for events, not just ours. We open it up to nonprofits who can have events, operate their programming. Last year, the Preservation Commission had a whole series of workshops on historic architecture and rehabilitation. They were held there at the Scott House. So the photography thing has really been around about 10 years, and Sandy Armstrong is the spark plug behind that. We are the one event that only focuses on photography as an exhibit. And it's a well-respected show. We have amateur and advanced photographers, and we've opened up a new category for historic architecture. But the opening is the 24th, and then we have exhibit dates. I don't have them in front of me.
Exhibit dates Saturday and Sunday, April 26th and 27th from 1 to 3. Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th from 1 to 3. And then the artists will pick up their photos on Saturday, May 10th between 1 and 3. So this is open to the public. A couple of weekends, April 26th, 27th, again, 1 to 3. Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 3. And of course, if they come and participate in the Quality of Place conference, it will already be up, and it allows the participants to also see those works.
That's correct. That's why we have the things at the same time. We try to, expose everybody we can to all the great culture, history, and community that we have here in Richmond.
So let's go through with the Columbian properties, and some of the money that you raise real quickly is to do work, and you mentioned the William G. Scott House and the work to keep the Scott House up and running. And that's got to be, with a building that age, it has to be something that really takes some time.
Well, we believe in divine providence. The Scott House was not in very good condition when Columbian Properties took it over. So we don't ask much money. Our programming doesn't really cost anything. Mm-hmm. So most of the money that we raise goes to the preservation of the Scott House. And you heard of act of gods? Mm-hmm. Well, wind damage will take care of a roof. We were able to replace our roof because of wind damage, which was in great need of repair. And I want to thank Van Vliet Insurance about that, because they were very helpful. Just recently, our air conditioning was stripped, made it unusable. And luckily, we had insurance. So over the years, we've restored the front steps, put on a new roof, we fixed the gutters. Our whole mechanical system now is updated. And we've had, luckily through insurance, we've been able to accomplish those things. Act of God and act of scumbags who don't care about their community. You want to strip your air conditioners.
RichmondColumbianProperties.org. It is the Quality of Place Conference for 2025 coming up on May 1st starting at 10:30. Matt Stegall, as always, thank you for the time.
Well, you're more than welcome. We really appreciate the great things you're doing. You're serving a valuable ministry.
Thank you. We'll be back with more In Focus in just a moment.
Richmond Sanitary District curbside service in your neighborhood. Know the dings. Bag trash goes into your green rosy roller. Regular route drivers do not get out of their trucks to pick up bags and items left beside your green rosy roller. If you have larger items that do not fit in your green rosy roller, please call to schedule a special pickup, 765-983-7450. Clean, loose, unbagged recyclables go in your blue Ritchie roller. Plastic bottles and jugs, aluminum and steel cans, glass bottles and jars with lids removed. Newspaper, chipboard, like cereal boxes and magazines, should be placed on top of the blue Ritchie roller tied. Corrugated cardboard has the wavy layers. It must be clean, no pizza grease, folded and broken down to slide easily out of the container when picked up to be emptied by the truck. Questions on the curbside containers? Please call Debbie Tevis at 765-983-7456. Richmond Sanitary District. Our goal is to grow.
Hi, I'm Eric. Join us for this month's Access to the Arts as we hear from the Richmond Symphony Orchestra about their last concert of the season and their upcoming special event. Dustin talks with artist Tracy Burns. And we also get an update on the Reed Center.
Watch Access to the Arts on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on WETV Channel 20 and on the WCTV YouTube channel.
Hello again, and I'm Beth Treaster. I'm with the Wayne County Master Gardener Program, which is part of Purdue Extension. We are a group of volunteers who just love to garden, and thanks to Purdue, we've been given the opportunity to teach about it after having had extensive training by Purdue. And today, I'd like to give you some ideas. If you have a patch of grass, just plain old grass, that you would like to turn into a vegetable garden, how you can do that. It may be you already have a vegetable garden, then you want to add to it, or you may have a place that's not anything. Sometimes our yard is so poor it's just bare dirt. Whatever place you would like to turn into a place to grow food, let's talk about how to make the transition. Now, I mentioned in an earlier segment that it used to be you brought in a plow or a big tiller, Or if it was small enough, people used to work up a new garden bed with a whole lot of hard work with a shovel. Maybe you've heard of the concept of double digging. It used to be thought that to create a space that would grow really well, which you need good soil for vegetables, that you had to take out all the dirt to one shovel depth and then take out another shovel depth. Oh, way too much work. I'm not doing that. You know, I'm in my 60s now and I don't want that much physical labor. So thank goodness we now know we don't have to do all that work and we don't have to have big equipment. Instead, we do something that's called layering, or a name you may have heard is lasagna gardening. That's a word people throw around now, but it all started by this author. She wrote this in 1998 called lasagna gardening. She came up with a term. It's not a new idea. It just means planting in the soil as it is instead of tilling it. Now, why does lasagna gardening work? The old method of tilling or plowing worked because, one, it made the soil very loose and so the roots could move easily, and two, it gave lots of room for air in the soil, lots of oxygen, so plants grew very quickly and well. We now know that's counterproductive. That actually harms the soil. See, when I was a kid and I'd follow my dad as he was plowing a field, I would see, you know, walking along with my bare feet in the furrow, I would see all those worms. What I did not see was the thousands of kinds of life that are microscopic, the tiny little creatures that are in the soil. When we turn the soil, when we till it or flip it with a trowel or flip it with a shovel, we kill those tiny types of life that live in it. So now we know that for the long term, for the overall health of the soil and for good productivity, leave the soil as it is. Now that doesn't mean you can never stick something in it. We can. The first thing I'm going to do, let's pretend that this is going to be a new vegetable bed right here. First thing I'm going to do, well, after making sure that there's no utilities here, is just stick this rod in the soil. This is the time to do it because the ground is saturated. We've had so much rain, and you know what? This is not ideal. I did this at my house and it went in up to here. This is hard packed soil. So, not saying you couldn't plant a garden here. And you notice the person who lives here has done raised beds so that they don't have to contend with this hard packed soil. But you could still garden here. You might want to use a digging fork just to loosen, not to turn. I'm not trying to flip the soil. I am only trying to give it places for the air to get down into it. Like, well, look at that. Like I said, this is hard soil. Okay, now, once you've found your spot and determined it may be so good already that none of this hard soil thing will be a problem. But either way, you can still go ahead and plant. And here's how to do it the simplest way. The only tool you'll need, really, is a trowel. You don't need a shovel. Digging fork's handy. You don't have to have one. Get yourself a good trowel. This one will last my whole life. And a bright handle so I don't lose it in the grass. Whatever is growing where you want this new bed, cut it very short with your mower or with a trimmer or something. Cut it really short and leave whatever you cut down, leave it there. Then layer down any garbage you have, any yard waste, anything you can find that would decompose. And then, this is today's secret weapon of gardeners. You know, this is simply a piece of plain old brown cardboard cut off a box. Cardboard is awesome. I use quantities of it. My neighbors know to give me all their boxes. You lay this down on the area that you've mowed and where you've laid all your garbage. Lay this down on top, and then it's going to want to blow. So put something on it that's kind of pretty, maybe, like straw or chopped leaves or wood chips, and then just leave it. Ideally, this process of layering, creating the lasagna layers, like this book talks about, you want to do it in the fall. I know it's spring right now. You can do it in the spring. You'll be a little more limited in what you can grow. If you do it in the fall, by next spring, the cardboard will be gone. It will have rotted away, and underneath it will be nice soil, ready to plant. If you are just now putting down your cardboard, you won't be able to find seeds necessarily, but you can still take your trowel, poke through that cardboard, and stick in a tomato plant. So even this spring, you can still get some vegetables going. And that's all there is to a layered garden. You can get as complicated or fancy with it as you want. You can add different minerals and manures and all this kind of stuff, but really, it's going to grow food if you just put down cardboard and something to cover it. It's a great way to get started, and it doesn't cost anything, and I hope you have fun with it. We'll talk more in our upcoming segments about which vegetables to start with. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Beth Treaster, and I'm one of the Wayne County Master Gardeners.
Hi, I'm John Duke with Wayne County Emergency Management. Spring weather is here. For the most current local updated information, we encourage everyone to sign up for public alerts through Nixle. The easiest way to sign up for Nixle is text 888-777 in the to field of a text message, and then enter your zip code in the body and hit send. For the most current information, whatever the situation may be, we encourage the public to sign up.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Thank you very much for spending time with us again, whether you're watching on WGTV Channel 11, whether you're watching this off of our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, maybe you're watching streaming on WGTV online or listening to the audio on radio. We thank you for spending time with our In Focus program. We are glad to have back with us John Duke from Wayne County Emergency Management, but he brought the big guy with him.
I brought the boss.
He has avoided coming to talk to me for years.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. So.
Matthew Cain, thanks for being here, seriously.
Of course, absolutely.
For folks who may not know, let's start with you because it's been a while since you've been here. Provide us with a little bit of your background, what brought you to emergency management. Are you native to Wayne County? Catch us up.
Sure, absolutely. Born and raised in Wayne County on a farm in rural Wayne County between Williamsburg and Economy. Been in the county, for several years. Worked in the county for several years. Started dispatching at the 911 center here in 2001, and then also was a paramedic in Richmond with then Rural Metro for a number of years before going back to dispatch full time. So that's my background. Come from volunteer fire department service from the time I was 18. Fire, EMS, and dispatch background is where I came from.
That volunteer fire thing continues to change and evolve. And
Oh, it does. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And John Duke back with us again. John's been with us a couple of times, but provide a little background on yourself real quick for those who don't know you.
I also have a very similar background to Matthew. Many years in a volunteer fire service role, EMS as well, and the 911 center, which made my transition to emergency management a pretty easy decision. So,
For those who are new to the area, and we always know that we've got some new folks coming in, talk a little bit about what emergency management for Wayne County is and encompasses, because it may not be the same everywhere you go and every place you've ever lived.
True. So emergency management for Wayne County, we kind of act as the liaison between locals and government officials. We work very closely with Indiana Department of Homeland Security, which in turn works very closely with FEMA. So we are kind of that medium in between to help pass information back and forth. Our office is charged with doing a lot of the planning and preparedness at the county level, having specific plans in place, a comprehensive emergency management plan. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Continuity of operations plan, severe weather plan.
Continuity of operations, just to kind of pull that one out. What does that mean?
So the citizens, of course, expect business as usual no matter what is going on. And so, and it applies not only for county government, but any business or office should have some sort of a continuity of operations, that if there is a disruption, whatever that may be, whether it's an extended power outage, whether it's displacement due to an unfortunate fire, how are you going to continue to provide the services that your business provides? In our case, it's the emergency management or the 911 center.
Correct.
We have to be able to continue the operations and those services for the county. And so what does that look like? What things do we have to have in place?
There is an expectation by the public that we don't close. And so we have to have plans like that so we can continue to operate and provide services to the residents.
Last time we talked to you, in particular, we've had a chance to see John. Last time we talked to you, though, we were actually in your facility. It was during the pandemic, and you were talking about kind of following the plan that had been created and been left. I assume that's what you're talking about in terms of continuity and working through almost anything. Are you completely on the other side of what that pandemic plan is or was? I know we're 5 years removed from it, and everybody thinks it's all gone. There's still people wearing masks. There are people still getting COVID. So talk about where you all are in terms of that and how your operation worked through that for the county.
Well, exactly that. Any type of these events, that whether it be severe weather or the continuity of operations or the pandemic plan, it is just that. It was something that, John and I had never been faced with a global pandemic before, as a lot of people in our professions had not.
And let's not do it again.
And we're not going to do it again,
come
we hope.
on.
No. But at least that plan gave us a starting point of these are the things that need to happen. These are the people you need to have at the table, and really got us in a moment where we're like, oh boy, what are we about to, encounter? Kind of helped us focus on some of the things we were able to manage in a time that several things were out of our control.
It was a very steep learning curve.
Yeah.
It was a trial by fire.
And we relied very heavily on the health department at that time to offer guidance and things like that. As opposed, or going back to your original question as to kind of where we are at with that, I would like to say that as far as the plan goes, that part is done and completed.
Okay.
Are there certain aspects of that plan that are still in place or in play? Absolutely. You mentioned a couple of them. Folks are still wearing masks, taking extra precautions. Seen a huge spike in influenza and COVID, currently at local
Seeing a
health
lot on
systems.
social media, people are getting a bug, a flu, a bronchitis, and it keeps recurring, and they're feeling down longer, it seems.
Right. Some of that could be from the effects of the pandemic still with individuals' immune systems and things like that. So, but as far as the plan goes, that plan has been put back on the shelf for right now.
How do you all take it and update it? How do you all take it, put in what you learned versus what was assumed?
So we take away what we call after-action reports usually, and we use those to help us develop and rewrite and revise and improve our plans as we go. They're constant living creature. They get touched as regularly as we can, updated, things like that. I just updated the severe weather plan since spring is coming before us rapidly.
We have our fingers crossed. We're hoping.
I know, yes, we do. But we constantly work on those, and every event or incident, we take something away and we try and incorporate it and add it if needed to our emergency plans.
You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're spending some time with Matthew Cain, John Duke, Wayne County Emergency Management. You mentioned spring. It brings with it, after the winter, some of its own issues, problems. Let's before we push the winter away, even though we're trying to very, very quickly.
Rapidly, yes, please.
How did you all come through that? And I know one of the things that residents, there's people yelling at their TV. What about these travel advisories? Just real quickly, talk about how that gets decided.
Sure.
When it starts, when it ends, who's responsible, who makes the call, who do we yell at, and why can't we travel on certain roads even though they look clear?
Sure. No, absolutely. The way the travel advisory works, it's all established by county ordinance, several years in place now, with an interlocal agreement with the City of Richmond and the Town of Centerville. For the Level 1 advisory, which is the very base, just letting them know that road conditions are deteriorating. It's a collaborative decision between Emergency Management, the Wayne County Sheriff's Department, and the Wayne County Highway Department. Okay. And we get on a conference call and we see what we talk about what we're seeing.
Yeah, observations.
Observations.
You're out driving the roads. The sheriff's out driving the roads. That type of thing.
Correct.
Absolutely, monitoring the 911 calls coming in, where the accidents and slide-offs are happening, or if they are happening, and things like that. And that's kind of what drives that decision.
And you all can agree, but you still have to have approval from the commissioners?
Not for the Level 1.
Not for the Level 1?
Not for the Level 1.
Okay.
However, anytime we go above that for a Level 2 watch or a Level 3 warning, it involves the commissioners, and they have to approve that because it constitutes a declaration of emergency, which only the county commissioners can do. For the county. So the Level 2 is for essential travel only to and from work, pharmacy, grocery, some of those types of things.
The essential things you need for to maintain your livelihood or your living conditions.
But it's just that extra level of caution and concern because County Highway can only keep up on some of their roadways as best they can. Mm-hmm. And again, these levels are only for those roads maintained by the county or the City of Richmond or the Town of Centerville. It does not apply to any of the state or federal highways, including I-70, 27, 35, 38. We have several state highways and U.S. highways in the county, actually.
Right.
And these levels don't apply to those. We have no jurisdiction over those roads, just strictly the county roads.
Okay. We're moving into spring, and there's always a change. People take the shovels out of their cars. They take the kitty litter out of their cars.
I've already taken all of that stuff out of mine.
Very hopeful.
You have a chance to see the weather far and ahead and probably know much more than we do.
I've already taken all that stuff out. So it'll probably turn around and get me, but that's okay.
And what do we put back in once we take that stuff out?
So severe weather is, spring severe weather comes the threat of thunderstorms, isolated tornadoes, high wind, all the things that we live in Indiana. Most of us have been here a while, and we know what it's like to be in Indiana in the springtime. So we urge preparedness. That's our goal, because people, the more we can get our message out in front of people, the better off they are to take care of themselves. So Matthew or I or the other responders can take care of the people who can't. So that's the message we like to put out there. Severe Weather Preparedness Week is coming up. Do you want to talk about that? That was yours.
Yeah, March 9th through the 15th is Severe Weather Awareness Week for the state of Indiana.
Okay.
It's just a time that's set aside to, we'll see a lot of social media posts from not only our office, but other responder agencies or at the state level, just urging residents to stop and think about how you can prepare yourself to be more resilient during spring weather, whether that be preparing for a power outage, whether that be making sure that you have emergency a plan in place for your family at home or at work. Where are you going to go to seek shelter? Should there be a tornado warning for the area? You know, all those types of things. Just stop and think about what some of those actions should be, what you could have in place prior to the event happening. Or should it happen?
The best time to let me rephrase that. Being prepared gives you the ability to handle a situation. You can't get ready for a storm when it hits. So you have to get ahead of the game and have, as Matthew alluded, your plan, your communication plan, have a supply kit, just the necessary things that you need to operate your household, including your pets, for about 72 hours. And that includes medication, extra eyeglasses, food and water, important documents, all the things that might become important if you had to displace or move from your residence. You also should have a small supply kit in your vehicle in case you were to have some kind of emergency. It's always a good idea. It's a good idea to keep a couple toys and some little activity books if you have young children to keep them entertained, especially if you have to leave. So it's just, we want them to be aware and think about the things that they would use on a daily basis to maintain their household.
You want them to be aware, so you need them to know when something is coming at them, and that's where Nixle and some of the preparedness in that way comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a local service here within the county that our office has mass notification alerts. And residents or visitors can sign up to receive those alerts. They come directly from the National Weather Service through our office and onto this platform. It's very easy to sign up, just texting the zip code of where you're at or where you live to 888-777, and that immediately enrolls them into those notifications, and they can choose whether it's text message or email or how they prefer to receive those. But that gives citizens at least an idea of the different advisories, watches, and warnings that are coming out so that we can help try to prepare them as best as possible.
Another way that folks can be prepared is to look at the sky and somewhat know what's coming at them, or at least be able to, oh, clouds are pretty. That's kind of my
Correct.
fallback.
Yeah.
Correct.
But there is more to it than that.
There is, and they talk about see something, say something. I know that's off the subject, but if you're aware of what's going on around you, you're already more prepared. If you look outside and it's sprinkling, you grab the umbrella. Well, you're already more prepared than what you were when you opened the door. Yeah. So you keep that awareness up, and you're starting to get ahead of the game.
You're watching In Focus on WGTV Channel 11. We're spending time with John Duke, Matthew Cain from Wayne County Emergency Management. We've got about 8 minutes or so left. Before we went on the air, I mentioned to you I have not in my lifetime had to call 911. I assume I'm not the only person. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about, if I had to call 911, what type of things can I know? What can I do to make the call go easier, smoother, so that I can get the help or the response that I'm looking for?
Sure, absolutely. It's a great question, and it's. I hope folks don't have to call 911, but it is good to know what that might look like behind the scenes and what's going on. The first question you're going to be asked is 911. Where is your emergency? That is the most important key information for the dispatchers to obtain is where is this occurring. And then they'll follow with an onslaught of questions as to what is going on. Is it fire related, medical, law enforcement related? They're going to ask for your name. They're going to ask for your callback number. If the phone gets disconnected for whatever reason, that way they've got the number. Yes, it does come into the computer, but we like to verify that to make sure the technology is working. And then just be prepared. Dispatchers are trained to get the most information in the shortest amount of time. John worked as a supervisor for years in the 911 center, so he gets that and understands it. But I want people to understand that all because those questions are being asked does not mean that the delay or that there is a delay in the response. We have a minimum of 4 to 5 dispatchers on duty around the clock. So while you are speaking to one dispatcher and the dispatcher's asking you questions, the 4 others in the room are dispatching the responders to the emergency. And so all because there seems like a lot of questions, that does frustrate callers from time to time. Well, why are you asking me the questions? Just get them here.
Right.
Please know that that's occurring. It's just going on in the background simultaneously. And of course, unless you've been in the room when that 911 call comes in, you don't see that. And you don't see that on the phone when you're talking to the dispatcher. It's a highly emotional time for the caller. It's probably their worst day that they've ever had. And so our dispatchers are trained to try to get them to calm down so we can understand them and get the information as quickly as possible so we can get the right responders there.
What do we tell kids? We're in an age where kids have their own phone. They're home, maybe not even with a parent. They may be home with a grandparent. They may be home with a smaller child, and they find a need to call 911. What should we have told them ahead of time? What do we want to make sure they know or have available to them?
No, absolutely. And quite frankly, children can be our best callers sometimes because they don't know to have some of the emotion and panic that adults do. So they actually follow the line of questioning that the dispatcher has better and more appropriately than adults sometimes, if we're being honest.
You can learn from the kids.
That's exactly right. That's exactly. But it goes back to some of those basic principles that a lot of children are taught, knowing their address and maybe their phone number or their parents' names if they're still used to referring to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. Making sure they know their parents' names. And what I've seen and what we encourage is maybe posting it on the refrigerator or somewhere where they know where to get that information, or a piece of mail that's got the address on it or something like that. But children are smarter than we sometimes give them credit for, and they pick up on things like that. And so there are better callers some days. So.
All right. We've got about 3.5 minutes left, and I'm going to ask each one of you all, you'll have to figure out how to divide it up, and I'm going to start with you. Minute or so, what do you want people to know, remember, take away from this conversation?
1, have multiple means of notifications. We all live and die by our mobile devices anymore. You have yours on your lap right there. And so we live and die by those devices, and we're tied to them very much. Have multiple means of notifications. We talked about the Nixle sign up. We also encourage residents to have some kind of means of notification in their residence. You may have your phone in the kitchen and you be in the bedroom. And if you don't have, let's say, a NOAA, a National Weather Service all-hazard radio in the house or in the home, you may not know that your phone's going off, and you could potentially miss something that you really should be paying attention to. So I do encourage multiple means of notification. Have your supply kit. Practice your practice your plan. Your plan, if you don't practice it, it's not going to go as well as it could. So, and especially if you have young children, and any young children watching this, encourage your parents to participate and take it a little more seriously. Sometimes adults don't, but practice that plan, have that ready. And that way, when something does happen, you're going to be better off.
Matthew, same question.
No, just to piggyback off of that, I think it's important that a lot of us are ingrained about the outdoor warning sirens, that it's not a true emergency until we hear those sirens.
Right.
Quite frankly, that's a very outdated and antiquated system, and should be kind of used as a last resort. They're only meant to be heard when you're outdoors, not around other means of receiving those notifications that John talked about. We all have our own personal notification device in our pocket with your cell phone, and that's much more reliable and quicker getting the information than those outdoor warning sirens and the upkeep and maintenance of those. So please don't rely on those solely when it comes to severe weather especially. But just keeping in mind, the Emergency Management Office is a resource for the community. We want to help. We want to be out in the community. A lot of people don't even know that we're down in the basement of the administration building.
You're hidden pretty well.
We are hidden very well, but that's not to. We want to be out in the community. We want people to know who we are and what we do, what resources that we can provide. A lot of times we are not the expert in all the things that we have to cover under our realm, but we do know who to call. And that is our job, is getting the right resources to the emergency. And so that's how we can help the community.
Cool. Thank you both for being here. It's good to see
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks for being back. Matthew Cain, John Duke, Wayne County Emergency Management. Thanks for watching this week's In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I hope you have yourself a great weekend, and as always, I wish you well.